listeners and race fans, and welcome to another episode of the Round Bar Supercars Podcast, the podcast by the punters on the hill for the punters on the hill. I'm Bails, and I've got Matty and Marshy on the line. We'll have a yarn to them shortly. You can listen in on Spotify, Podbean, and Apple Podcasts. All the links are in the show notes. You can search us up on Facebook, searching the Round Bar channel. And a particular thank you to Biti Motors Pty Ltd, Membrey Auto Electrics Kundruk, and Cobrapparel for jumping on board the pod and supporting us here at the Round Bar channel to bring you, the punters, on the hill, all of our content. G'day, Matty.
Howdy.
G'day, Marshy.
G'day, boys. How are we?
Good to have you back on the line. If we're having a yarn, it means that racing is nigh. Upcoming Townsville Supercars Super 440 weekend. We'll preview that very, very soon. But to kick us off, some news cycle headlines. And I guess things are a bit thin on the ground from my side of the camera, gents. Really just looking at the Townsville resurfacing. And, you know, I guess a commitment to resurfacing that venue probably locks it in as having a spot on the calendar for the next foreseeable future. It's always a bit of a give and take in terms of resurfacing a track. I know when Wanneroo over in Perth, where we're headed, was resurfaced, there was a bit of, you know, good and bad in terms of the racing it produced at the time, given it was described as a bit of a cheese grater on tyres and what that brought in terms of strategy across the run around management. But all in all, a resurfacing is good news for Townsville. Erebus have joined the GM Team Alliance, so they're now in part of the pipeline and sharing data in that GM network, and obviously giving a little bit of theirs back as well. There was a GM test at QR Raceway on fuel economy just after the Townsville event. And the team's racing charter, there's some conversations in that space of, I guess, developing by and large around the number of race weekends or events that we can have. I'm happy to unpack that one a little bit in a moment. But Matty, might throw it over to you first. Just some things you've noticed since we last had a yarn here on the pod.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. I'm pretty sure Waters has re-signed with Tickford, so that's a win for Tickford and Waters, I think, and all the I suppose the fans out there like myself. So that's nice to see. I think Betty Klemenko has been pretty sick, I understand as well. So I did see a post from her saying that she's back on deck and she's about to kind of start to get back into the supercars piece. So I think I hope she's well, and hope to see her around Bathurst, everything like that. And the only other piece that I had to talk about was the young drivers, the next gen. I think what we've seen over the last the last few rounds, but then also the fact that we've got the youngest field that we've ever had, I think that's just fantastic. And I think what we have 9 drivers under 25 in the starting field this year. So when you kind of start to put that together, it is a pretty special group of people, and I think we're going to see them for a long time now. So, look, I think what they say, it's the youngest ever field at 27 years and 117 days. So the youngest, and I think the next youngest was 2008 or something like that. So look, it's that's pretty cool. And I've just been, as per a number of seasons now, I've just been following some of those younger drivers, and it's great to see them come through. So let's keep that up.
Absolutely, Matty. And I know we lament from time to time in terms of personality and getting those things out, you know, into the public and sharing those sorts of things. But when you look at the numbers and statistics around the age of these guys and their experience, well, they've kind of got to grow into that and develop that confidence and experience and find out who they are. In a professional sense, in a public sense, and all those sorts of things as well. So it goes both ways, and I know we're sitting on the fence with that, but I guess we're trying to provide a balanced commentary around that kind of stuff as well. Marshy, anything grabbed your attention since we last had a chat?
Obviously, a few things in regards to the conversation around Red Bull and Feeney. I think Matty Payne, there was an article out that Matty Payne doesn't want to wake the giant, if that's the sort of terminology, because he knows what he can bring. and he's still not comfortable about only being 92 points up, I think, in the championship. So he's still sitting there going, you know what, I know what this bloke can bring, and he can bring it fast, and that lead could go away very, very quickly if Red Bull and Feeney get on top, and if Matty Payne doesn't have a really good race or a really good weekend. So that could slip away pretty quickly. I think the other one, there was talk about Declan Fraser's seat going or not going. He had a test day, I think, at QR, and there were some numbers, and a few others got invited to come and race as well and see how the times went. I'm not 100% sure how that went, but yeah, obviously you're in the seat and hopefully you can stay there. And then Aaron Love comes out and says he hasn't given up the dream of still racing, and you've got blokes like, I was going to say Cooper Murray, but he's still racing. What's the fella? BJR. I've just lost it.
Brycey Forward?
Brycey Forward, yeah. So he might still be in there as well. So who knows where they are all going to end up and what's going to happen. It is a bit of the silly season, as we know, in car racing. So anything can happen. So that's probably all I've taken away from what's come out of a very slow 3 weeks of not much.
It hasn't been a lot.
You watch us get bombarded with liveries and stuff like that after we've just recorded this, and and all this stuff comes out. So anyway, we can only do what we can do with the news that we're given. Absolutely.
We can have a yarn about some of the things after the event, hey? In the post-pod. And we can lament that as well. Something that we are probably, I guess, not entirely across in terms of the contractual nature of it all, but I think as a wider fan base, we get a pretty good idea and understanding around these teams' racing charter and the conversations that are happening in terms of teams have signed up to the category for 12 rounds per season. Any above that requires payment from the series back to the teams for each car per round on top of that. Now, something, and that's probably been in existence for a couple of years since they moved to the TRC model. Something that came to light, and full disclosure in terms of it coming from the Speed Cafe crew, was around not just the payment that needs to be made per car, but how that payment I guess works, and it's in terms of if they make a profit and what that looks like on a particular race weekend, then they get a slice of that as well, and then it gets into really untenable territory in terms of being financially viable for the series. So I'm not sure who's going to give and take in this space, but they both agree we need to race more. It's kind of commercially and for the sustainability, they both want to race more, but we've got a stalemate around paying for it. Now, business and that sort of thing is definitely not my wheelhouse. It's a little bit more a couple of the other members of the pod's jam. But guys, surely this just has to get sorted out. What do you reckon, Matty?
Oh, they've got to crunch the numbers and work it out, right? If you're Look, this is an entertainment sport, and the big dollars are through TV deals.
Correct.
Nothing else will drive this sport into the future than getting eyes on it and making it exciting. And I think, obviously, you're gonna have to look at how to reward the teams and get them the right amount of money and the kind of the twos and fro's in that. But if you look at any of the deals that have been done for the football leagues now, the most entertaining sport gets all the eyes and it gets all the money. So if supercars really want to start to drive something, they're going to have to get more eyes on TV. Fair enough, lots of people like to go and watch it at the track, but I think at the moment it's not very accessible online or on TV. Like, people are still worried about paying for KO subscriptions and blah, 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 blah. So you've got to work out that mechanism. And I think the key driver for that mechanism is exciting racing. So I don't want to come back to the last pod and get on my high horse again, but if all you've got is commentators talking about tyres and fuel, I'm not getting excited about the racing. I want cars out there going as fast as they can to win a race. And I don't think for the last couple of rounds we've actually seen that. So
if anyone wants any further thoughts or our thoughts, because it is by and large some of the other bits and pieces that naturally come up in this conversation we've covered in depth in other pods, across the season as well. Marshy, anything additional to add in this space?
I think what supercars probably need to start doing is actually listening to maybe what the fans want as well, in regards to changes maybe with cars, maybe with, I'm going to say like with liveries and things like that. Obviously, we can't put more tracks on because it's going to cost money, but if they just listen to things that the fans are wanting, you're going to get more buy-in from the fans, and therefore probably more merchandise gets sold or more people go to the track. I just find it funny, like listening to even the drivers when they get interviewed by the interviewers, obviously in NASCAR. They don't refer to each other as their names. They refer to each other's car as the 11, the 19, the 97, the 12, or whatever. And it becomes sort of that thing that the driver actually owns, is that number. And I feel as though people are starting to go, you know what, I'm not going to follow Shell V-Power, I want to follow Brody Kostecki. Or I'm not going to follow Monster Tickford, I'm going to follow Cam Waters. So building around that and actually becoming something around that number, I feel as though is something that the fans want, and I feel as though if supercars went down that direction, it's going to get more buy-in and more people wanting to see how their driver went, rather than, let's see how Tickford went in the Monster car, energy car. So I feel as though they've got to start listening to fans and what the fans want, and start doing those little changes that don't cost a huge amount of money, but just make fans happy. Because when you have the happy fans, they're going to watch.
And at this point in time, they're going to share, they're going to post, they're going to get
absolutely
up and around it.
Yeah, and they hashtag number 96, or they hashtag 88 or 888 or whatever it is. That's that number. So yeah, I feel as though they get more buy-in from the fans. We're
connecting with an individual and a person, and that professional's brand in that space versus, I guess, a corporate entity.
Yeah,
and there's been a transition towards that. Probably escalated over the last number of years. But really, you can identify quite a few people along the way that have built that brand. And, the people of yesteryear that still have that brand, if you think Craig Lowndes, if you think Peter Brock, and he's has left us quite a number of years ago, Dick Johnson, that kind of thing. There was quite a number of individuals that harnessed that at the time. But we need to amplify that and take it into a new level. Good stuff, fellas, and time to just sort of move into just that little bit of an extra segment that we brought in for the preview of the Townsville round, where we threw it out to the fans, just a little provocation on Facebook to give us a little bit of some thinking from the punters out there in terms of some things to have a little yarn about. And for this particular pod, Marshy, you put it out there to the crew around what was grinding their gears in relation to supercars. So we had a few things come in. Number of them we've covered off before on the pod, so we'll probably leave those. But one that was a little bit different that we probably hadn't considered in this particular capacity, from running on 7 cylinders, fellow content creator, gets a little bit out there on YouTube and out on the various supercars fan pages, just talking about qualifying sessions that are longer than races, or the accumulation of qualifying across a particular weekend or even a day in and of itself being longer than some of the races that we have. It's a good point. I know we've trimmed a little bit of qualifying, but Matty, what do you reckon about this one?
I reckon it's a cracker. I think I'm all for it in terms of trying to reduce the length of qualifying. I know you watch it every single time, and there's drivers that will go out and they'll punch out one lap, they'll do really bloody well, and then they'll go and sit in the garage for the rest of the session. So obviously people are gaming the system already, and I think it's up to supercars to say, well, how do we increase the pressure and make it something that you can't just game the system and do really well and save your tyres for? So I think it's a great question and really well put.
Beautiful. Thanks, Matty. And good point. That lift that pressure, reduce the time, make them, have to effectively get one lap in. And if they're really, really lucky, they might get two, but we really don't want people to be doing that. And hopefully looking towards a bit of a mixed up grid, a lock break here, run wide there, and all of a sudden you might be starting 20th instead of 10th, or 5th, and just mix up that field a little bit. So, Marshy, what do you reckon?
I think it's great. I think I actually probably hadn't put enough thought into actually how long we are qualifying. And then when you go, we're qualifying for nearly an hour by the time you have all those different cut-offs, and then you go and race, and we're racing a 27-lap race, which is shorter than the qualifying. I just don't, hadn't put much thought into it. I think it's a great question. I also think, though, it should be what you roll out of the truck with. You've now got 15 minutes to fix in a qualifying session that you can go down and put a massive lap down. Fantastic. That might set your weekend up. But then you have the next, you put down a lap, and then you got we just cut the bottom 6, and then, geez, let's roll in and we'll cut the next one, and then, we'll do a top 10 shootout, and then I just feel as though it loses it. Whereas if you roll out and just, let's say, for instance, I know we didn't know where they were last round, but imagine if BJR rock up and they just flat knacker top 3 spots, and you end up with Tickford at the bottom on the first sprint race. That's just how it is. You've got 10 minutes once you pull it back in there, quickly make some tweaks, and you're going to hope that you can get that car back in that window really, really quick. And then we might see those mixed up groups. We might see some of those kids actually be up near the top end and actually having a bit of a crack because they've rolled out really well and they haven't had the time to adjust. The bigger teams haven't had the time to adjust and get it to work right. And therefore, we've got other kids and they're fighting, and then I think it'd be great. I think, especially for sprint rounds or sprint races.
Couple of things to bear in mind in terms of, I know we've had a last season, I think it came up maybe earlier this season, just a little bugbear around positioning in pit lane and how that affects people in qualifying. So that's one of the things I probably did consider. And the other one is probably looking around, I'm okay with having variants of qualifying formats across the season. This is probably more around having it in a shorter manner. So I know there's a little bit of, and this came up in one of the other comments, and it's been talked about a fair bit in other forums in terms of having too many top 10 shootouts across the year. That's kind of to the side of it. We're sort of talking about qualifying. What does it take to get from the beginning of qualifying to setting your race grid and reducing, the time or the number of laps the cars are on track? So yes, we've attacked practice. What can be done in that qualifying space to still give variety across the different race formats? Because effectively that's what they've tried to do. We've got our Super 440 weekends with a format. Melbourne Grand Prix kind of sits by itself with its own little thing. Our 500 weekends, when we've got typically our 250Ks or our 100 and 200s, they've got a format, and then our endurance format. I don't mind that, but maybe reducing, the time and saving those top 10 shootouts for the pinnacle of our sport and those sort of crown jewel weekends. But attack practice, shorten this quali, either give us some more laps to stretch it out if we need to stop this fuel drama, or fix those laps up as well and give us another race potentially on that same weekend. Make it busy for them.
Oh, absolutely. Coming back to your point in regards to pit lane and how it gets busy in there, and people, depending on where you are, you get stuck in the pit lane. I have found it interesting that Brody Kostecki lately literally comes in, just does his quick change, and he gets out before everybody, and he's putting it on pole. Like, he's getting he's getting clear air. He's not waiting for the rest of the bunch of the field to get in there. They time it right, or get out, should I say. They time it right, and he's out there before everybody. And so probably there's a bit more strategy. I know Matthew bangs on about the pit lane order doesn't matter, so Shell V-Power are obviously trying to make it work in their favour by getting him in and then getting him out as fast as they can to give him some clear air, and then obviously lay down a good time, which is obviously working for them.
All right, this is one out of the box, and I'm not sure you'd go with it, but hypothetically, and I love a good hypothetical every now and again, what about, so your pit lane sets your order weekend to weekend. And yes, it's affecting qualifying, but effectively you're rewarding race results. So then you're using the pit bays for pit stops within the races themselves. What about for qualifying? Yes, you have your garage bay allocated as per what we've got currently at the moment. But what about a randomised draw on who can go out onto the track, or an order for doing that for qualifying?
So you're saying basically, like, if you're at the front, you don't get to pull out. You just have to wait till it's your turn in the queue?
Potentially. I think that causes lots of other problems that I haven't even thought of right now. Like, this is one of Bales' hypotheticals on the run. But is there something that could be done? I don't know.
Jeez.
You can also say it's stupid. I don't mind.
Well, I don't know. Like, is it going to bring another... Does it bring something else to it as well? But I just don't know how you'd work that. Because what if you just go, stuff it, I'm going to wait right till the end and I don't get to go out. And then all those cars don't get to qualify because I chose to go right out at the last. Do you know what I mean?
Oh.
Then you got to wait for the next guy to go.
Every now and again, I can come up with some rubbish stuff. I don't disagree, don't doubt that. Matty?
Every now and then. Not all the time, though. I don't know. We've kind of backed ourselves into a corner here with the bloody... Just have shorter qualifying. Make sure everyone gets out there to cut a fast lap and bloody get them racing all together. Like,
let's crack on.
Yeah. Again... Does anyone really look forward to watching a qualifying session? Like, the only ones that I really get excited about are where they start kind of dropping off cars really quickly. So you don't get the chance to go in and fix a few things and come back out and set your time. You just get out there, you set a lap, and if it's no good, then you're down the bottom of the pack. Those ones are exciting. The other ones are they're just a snooze fest because they're just about teams trying to find a bit of clean air and sort it out. So just make it fast, get them out there and just, I don't know, challenge the drivers to put down their best times. I don't think you need a long time to do that.
Let's do it. Hook in.
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
Got us talking.
Got us having a yarn here. So make sure you're out there in Fanland and out there on the socials. Have a bit of a yarn about it as well. Make some comments. So, fellas, time to roll on in to our preview for Perth. So the Bosch Power Tools Perth Super 440, the Motor Mall Wanneroo Raceway, 2.42 kilometres just to the north of Perth. Lap record of a 52.8141 for Scotty Mack in 2019, according to supercars.com. Our 2025 results see Woody taking out one race last year and Feeney with two. Not a lot happening on the days in the lead-up, according to Supercars, but on Thursday there's a little fan event in store that they're running there at Coates Hire before we hook into the racing proper starting on Friday. Now, there's been, in terms of the chat and the calendar, there's also been talk about, how many days we're racing and other bits and pieces like that. Now, for Friday, for Supercars, they have two 25-minute practice sessions. One at 5 o'clock and one at 5:40. One for effectively practice one and practice two. I'm not even going to unpack that, so we'll keep rolling. I think if you've listened long enough to what we just talked about or have been paying any attention, you'll just be shaking your head. Rolling on into Saturday, we've got kicking off at 11:45, 30-minute Boost Mobile qualifying for race 23. Then almost straight after that, the Boost Mobile qualifying for race 24, so 30 minutes apiece. A couple of hours off, roughly, before we get into race 23 at 2:45, and that's 50 laps, and then one at 6:20 p.m, and that's another 50 laps as well. Times for those listening on the East Coast noted there, and same for when we put those times up on the socials. Then on Sunday, kicking off at 1 p.m, 30-minute Boost Mobile qualifying. At 1:45, we get a 30-minute, effectively, a window for the Boost Mobile Top 10 shootout for race 25. And then at 5:20 p.m, we get 80 laps, 25, race 25. Again, some of those races are good times for us back here on the East Coast to sit down after a day out and about, have a couple of cold ones on the couch and enjoy some racing. Support categories, the First Focus Radical Cup Australia. If you've never seen a Radical, make sure you turn on the box and have a bit of a look at one of those. A Trans Am Cup Series racing, Dunlop Super 2, the Tyre Power V8 Super Ute Series, bit of freestyle motocross. The Dodge Chargers, the club in WA, are having a bit of a display, some custom classics, and the ADF are out and about. Gentlemen, our format for the weekend takes us back to our Super 440 roots. What are you looking forward to or maybe a watch on some of our drivers and teams across the weekend over in Perth. Marshy, you have a crack at this one?
What am I looking forward to? The little mini Monza, I sort of relate this one to. The track layout looks very similar. So I reckon Penrite have got this with their Italian co-driver for Italian engineer with Kai Allen. They might know how to get a little bit more out of it. No, that's a bit of a joke, but no, I'm looking forward to it. I think.
Sorry, I was just.
Cheers, Matt. No, I think I don't know. We talked about Waters coming from Darwin into Townsville, and could he back it up? And he did. Is he going to be able to do the same again and put more pressure on the boys up the top? I feel like Grove are probably in a spot as well that are going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I'm looking forward to Red Bull. This is going to sound really. I'm looking forward to them bouncing back. I don't like saying that, but I am going to look forward to them bouncing back. I think they will. I actually think they will. I don't think they'll have another weekend like they did. Jamie Whincup's back in their garage after being over the Goodwill Speed Festival, so he'll be back and he'll be telling them, boys, we need to sort something out. So, yeah, I think they'll bounce back pretty hard this weekend, and they'll be keen to show everybody, don't talk trash to us because we've just laid it back down to you. So.
And I think, in terms of, you talk about Matty Payne earlier on in being cautious in that space, is very wise. You don't want to be throwing stones at, the 20-year effectively like reigning champions on everything. I know that's not entirely factually correct, but you take my point.
Yeah.
And, they haven't been perfect in the pit stops, in the Grove side of things, that they've had wheels come off and all sorts of stuff. So, potentially they could be further in front. But also, you got to be mindful of, what was it? Awakening the Beast, I think was your quote or something like that from earlier on. Matty, our weekend ahead?
Yeah, I was probably mostly interested in the Red Bull. I'll say interested because I'm not really excited for him to do well, but I will be watching keenly to see just how they perform across the weekend to see if they can start to pull it together. And I think it's a great opportunity for Waters to, I suppose, prove me wrong a little bit, but a whole heap of other doubters that kind of said, well, you can't string them back to back, and he's starting to string them back to back. So it'll be nice to see if he can do that and really start to put some pressure on the top of the field, like Marshy said. The other one is Kostecki. I've loved watching him race the last couple of rounds because he's probably one of the few drivers that'll come out after something's not gone that well and he'll have a real crack. So it's not that I hope that something doesn't go right for him, but I hope that he really turns that on this weekend and gives us some good racing, because that's what we're all there to watch, is good drivers having a good crack.
100%, and I think Waters has got his mojo back there, particularly in qualifying. So watch out, everyone, all culminating towards a pretty good weekend of racing over there in Perth. So that brings us to an end of our opening segment and the larger part of the pod, and brought to you our listeners and viewers out there by Cobrapparel. We'll be back very soon with the next segment. Alrighty, gents, time to hook on into the Membrey's Auto Electrical Spark It or Park It. Sparking things that we want to give a bit of a light to and we're cheering on, and park it to things that we don't want to see as much of, typically with a negative sense around it. Alrighty, Matty, what have you got for us, pal?
Alright, so I'm gonna start with my park it. And I'm hoping that over the next couple of rounds, Supercars have been listening to us and everyone else out there, and they're trying to sort out the fuel problems. I feel like for the last 3 years, we had parity, then we had tyres, now we got fuel. So hopefully we can sort these things out. We can get the boys out there racing hard, and we're not talking about people having to worry about fuel strategies all weekend. So I'm really hoping that this weekend, park the fuel chat. And even if they are bloody trying to save fuel, just don't talk about it. Just talk about something else.
Thanks, Matty.
then my only spark it for the round is just going back to the young guns. I think it's a really great opportunity for supercars to get behind the young guns and start to tell their stories a bit more and get people interested in them, and kind of they've done a few stories the last couple of weeks just before the races where you watch it and you're like, actually I know how they got here now, and it's really nice to see that story. So trying to get that through some of the younger drivers and get some fans connected to them, I reckon that'd be a massive one.
Nice one, Matty. Marshy, over to you, pal.
Going back to your park it, mate, with the fuel, I actually saw a clip, I think it might have been yesterday or the day before. Craig Lowndes used to be a character on Rory the racing car. Remember little Rory, it was Rory and the race kids cartoon thing, and they had an episode where they were putting biofuel, and Rory was a little bit not too keen on his. They weren't keen on the biofuel. Lowndes' character Conrad, the race car, was not keen on having biofuel. He wasn't sure how it would work with his car.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll see if I find the clip and I'll chuck it up on our Facebook. I reckon it might have been Make V8s Great Again or something like that on one of the Instagram. But I just thought, this is crazy. Here we are talking about fuel saving and biofuels, and Lowndes had already been a character on one of these little kids' TV shows, not wanting to put it in his car because he was worried it won't make him go fast. So anyway, I just thought that was cool. I love that. My park it, I think, is going to be... what's park it? I know we keep bringing up the rounds thing and how there's not enough racing and stuff, and I think we're just going to have to just live with what we got, so I'm just going to cut it at that. My spark it is I've loved the fact that I think I've seen the Tickford had brought out that they're going to do a poll on what Randall's Castrol livery is going to be, so fans get to vote on the livery that it's going to race at the Bend. I think it's at one of the enduros, I think, and whichever gets the most votes wins, and they'll throw that one on there. So I think that's really cool, bringing it back to the fans and allowing them to have the bit of the vote and get to see what they like. So yeah, thumbs up to them, and I'll hope more do that and spark it right up. So yeah, that's basically it. It's been a very slow news cycle, so I haven't got too much.
100%. 100% it has been, Marshy. I'm going to go park it and then spark it, a bit like, take my inspiration from Matty. I think this might be 3 Membrey Auto Electric Cool Spark It and Park It in a row, nearly. Did you see the runoffs at Townsville? I think it's turn 6. It had 2 ripple strips and then the green concrete, and they were still going on the grass. Surely that's taking the PISS? Honestly. Just put tar down. If you're going to let them do that, you might as well put tar down. Just make it wider.
Yeah, and let's not make them race or drive properly. Let's just give them bigger corners.
It'll end up like NASCAR, where they just go way out on those street circuits.
And of course.
Go way wide, but...
It is ridiculous. No point having track limits.
I think they were saying on the telecast when they had Townsville that or was it in Darwin? It was one of them where they'd put the syntho grass down and it'd become like oil. So yeah, it's there, but it's just slippery. But
I'd rather that.
Yeah, make it a bit dangerous if you get on there.
Oh, fair income. Anyway, my spark it, I think unintentionally got pinched way back at the start of the show. And it was I was given a bit of love, a bit of sparking to Aaron Love for keeping the Supercars dream alive, sort of coming out and saying, that's still on his radar and on the horizon, and he's having a run in Super 2, at this round coming up. Could have been quite easy to sort of hit the reset back into the Porsches, maybe explore the GT element. And I know there's a little bit of that sort of going on in the background, but to say, investing in getting back into Super 2 and, and stating it, that's the aim. I think, that's awesome. We need that, he's had a go, but also he's experienced. He's kind of in this gap between, some of our young guns, but also our experienced guys. And he could quite easily land himself back in a seat. I know Bryce Forward's a little bit older, but he lands in that same category. Toddy Hazelwood's in that category as well. And we need those guys being competitive in national level series elsewhere. whether it's Trans Am, Super 2, etc. I know they're a little bit older in terms of James Moffat in Trans Am, but we need these benchmarks in those series for the young guys coming through, or people trying to sort of make it back again to have a place to race. So awesome on that. Big spark it to Aaron Love. And a big thanks to Membrey's Auto Electrics for supporting our Spark It and Park It segment. We'll be right back to bring this one home, listeners. Alrighty, team, time to hand over to Marshy. What's been happening OS, my friend?
We've had a little bit happening, which is not too bad. A bit more in F1 and a fair bit, obviously, with our NASCAR and an IndyCar race. So when we last did the pod, I think we were headed to... We'll start with IndyCar. We were headed to Nashville, where Scotty Mack, he ended up in P4. Only just narrowly missed the podium, but he battled at the front all race. But for the rest of the field, she was pretty tough. With Will Power, he finished 20th. Scotty Dixon classified 18th, but he had retired after getting a bit of contact. And then poor old Marcus Armstrong ended the day in 24th. So not too bad, or not too well for 3 out of the 4, with Scotty Mack obviously doing pretty well there. But unfortunately, that's the only race for Indy. And then they're off and racing, I think, in a fortnight's time. So we'll have another recap there. We'll go into F1. So we've had 2 back-to-back race weekends, 2 great circuits as well. We've had the Belgian Grand Prix, and we've had the Hungarian Grand Prix. Jeez, if I could speak, it'd be great. A bit of a tough day at Spa. Poor old Oscar Piastri got a little bit of damage with a bit of contact from Charles Leclerc, and we'll get back into that in a little bit more in a moment as well. And he had to fight back, and he got to P5. Liam Lawson, though, he's been not too bad in Spa. He just couldn't. He had solid pace, but he crossed the line in 12th. But he's been up in the points, which has been fantastic for Liam Lawson, but he just sort of missed out in that regard. This weekend, though, was a bit devastating. We had Oscar he jumped the lead pretty early, and I thought, here we go, we're going to get back onto Oscar, and he's going to get his win. But poor old Carlos Sainz couldn't see in his rear mirrors that he was there, and I lost him. I was too bad battling someone else, and I just didn't see him, and wrecked the front end of poor old Oscar. So he pushed on, but he ended up finishing. Well, he didn't finish, actually, because he ended up DNFing after a gearbox failure, so he just couldn't finish. And Liam Lawson came away with 8, so he battled pretty hard too. I feel like he's going stronger and stronger, and as we've said before, his confidence must be growing, not being in that second Red Bull seat, but being still competitive in that second Red Bull team, which is fantastic for Liam.
They've nailed down 5th too in the constructors at the moment, so they're on a bit of a run.
They're going pretty well. No, you're right. No, they are going very, very well. We'll head into how we had SVG now in a NASCAR. So we've had probably a mixture of 2 weekends for poor old SVG. We've had some annihilation where he's been really, really happy, and then he'd come to this weekend and he wasn't so much. So last weekend he finished P5 in a 400 lap race. It was ridiculous. But I think it's obviously a small track, and he was absolutely knackered. But did you hear the radio contact when he got to the front and he wasn't? He's
what
like,
I'm
in the lead. What the F do I do now? Do I keep straight or what? But yeah, he did really, really well, and you could just see that he was just ecstatic with himself, and really happy with how he went. And I was cheering him on because he was in the lead, and I'm like, come on, mate, get there. But he just couldn't hold on. And then this weekend, at the Brickyard 400 in Indianapolis, it was pretty struggly. He couldn't do too much. He avoided some accidents, but he finished. I think he finished in 16th. I'd have to go back. I'm pretty certain it was 16th, but yeah, he's still there. He's still holding in his position for the Cup Series, and he's still in the championship of that top group. So yeah, hopefully he can get better, and not get better, but yeah, just do well and continue on his form and show those Americans how to do it. But that's it for international. So yeah.
100%. Marshy, a big thanks to you for keeping an eye on things and also keeping our people following us on Facebook up to date with your posts on there. Keeping track of everything happening OS for some Australians and Kiwis abroad. A big thanks to our episode supporters, Biti Motors Colcan, Membrey's Auto Electrics in Kundruk, and Cobrapparel. You can find us by searching the Round Bar channel on Facebook, listening in on Spotify, Podbean or Apple Podcasts. All the links are in the show notes. But for now, everybody, enjoy your racing. Cheerio.